Check, check, check. Live from the HQ. We got the Sine painter here. We're gonna talk about the EP in a second. But in the meantime, tell a friend to tell a friend. Delhi, India. We got a special guest in the studio today, all the way from Bangalore. On tour for his latest EP. We got the Sine painter. We got Kenneth in the house too. We're gonna chat about the EP, some inspirations, what's the journey been like coming all the way here, his sound, and yeah, evolution of electronic music in India. Boom. I'm gonna hand the mic to Kenneth.
Thanks, Mo. Dope stuff. Box out FM. Jen, it's your third city. Yeah? How's it going? How's it been so far?
Exhausting, like very exhausting. I don't know, like I think doing a tour, finishing 4 cities in one weekend after you haven't DJ'd in 7 months was definitely not, ideal conditions. Especially after you haven't even gone out to a club in like months. So yeah, it's like you had to relearn a lot of things, and how to work a club and like in terms of DJing and stuff. And then the schedules and everyone else's like sleep cycles and stuff. Because yeah, you get used to something else when you're disconnected from everything. Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
But going by the EP, you've learned and relearned a lot of things in the past, 7 months or even more. So, tell us some of the things that you've been up to.
So there was the academy, and there were two of the academies actually. So the one in Paris was kind of like an introduction into like how electronic music could be different from like what I was making, because I didn't really have much exposure to it. It was just okay, whatever the blogs or like music magazines pushed out, like that was what I followed. But I mean, and that was good music. Like, I'm not saying that's bad music. I still enjoy that stuff. But like, it was an eye opener when I went to the academy and met people who were doing things that were completely beyond my understanding. And that made me curious, made me want to like dig deeper. Like the fact that I didn't like, although I invested so much time into understanding electronic music and stuff, I still hadn't learned about any of this, and they themselves are like pretty like big in their own way. So yeah, that was that was the first eye-opening moment, and then came back and then started like doing my homework, research, seeing, oh, what do these guys do, what are they listening to, how are they making the stuff that they do. And yeah, just following, going down like SoundCloud adventures and stuff like that. Just click and listen to a lot of mixes, and then look up the track list, and then yeah, just general stuff like when you dig for music, and then like dig and analyze as well, because I was curious about why these things sounded like they did to me. Why did they have the effect like that they did to me? Is it because of the sounds? Is it because how they're arranged? And that kind of stuff. Kind of like started quantifying everything. And at some point I was even like taking notes and stuff to make everything a lot clearer for myself. And then I started like seeing, okay, now I have this understanding, what do I do with it? And kind of like started experimenting on my own with everything that I learned. And like 2 tracks that I put out sometime, I think last year, is Core and Con Artist. They were kind of a product of those two, of that whole learning and exploring experience. And then when I went to the academy this year, it was in I think October or November of 2016. And like, I went in with this exploratory mindset of music already, but then I went and saw people like doing things I had never even imagined, like even beyond what I'd learned the previous year. There was like there was a singer-songwriter, his name is Dowdy, and like just to see the way he keeps notes of like the lyrics that he writes, and how personal he makes his music. It's kind of like, it's not just cliche lyrics that it's just like, oh, first thing that comes to mind. No, like this guy actually like puts his soul into like his notes, and then he like translate those notes into lyrics for his music. And then there was there were a lot of people like doing all sorts of stuff. There was this artist Tay Salem. So he makes like, I don't know, he's a singer and producer, like you could call it like R&B or something, but he does it so well. He sings over like the weirdest hard beats, but he makes it sound so good, like and just seeing the way these guys work is just again, it's like, oh, I thought I spent time and I knew this, and I still don't know it. And instead of like exploring more of like what music could be, I was like, okay, how are these people viewing music? And then like, oh, they're actually attaching stories to what they do, and you know, like how they're attaching stories to what they do, and how it affects the music that they make. Um, that was kind of like the 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 origins of like how URL Utopias began, because musically, it might be the adventures that I had since the first academy, but then conceptually, it's more based on like what I learned from the second one. Yeah.
All right, let's hear a track from the EP. What are you going to play us?
Okay, so this is let's see, Plus Part 1, which is the first track that I made for the EP. Yeah. No, next one.
That was Plus Part 1 of URL Utopias by the Sine painter. So Jayant, you have a degree in computer engineering, is that right? Yeah. Information science, yeah. You developed the microsite for this EP yourself. You're interested in cyber technology. Tell us about some of the themes that this EP explores.
So like the basic theme about it is in the title itself, URL Utopias. It's like spots on the internet, that feel like utopias to people, and these people maintain it with a lot of effort, and it's either like a community effort or it's just one person like putting his heart and soul or her heart and soul into making this piece of work, and then you have this network of these things connected all throughout. Like that, the whole EP was based on that aesthetic of like these pockets of insane creativity spread out through the internet. Either works by like great visual artists or like the demo scene, which is like they're basically the people who make the music and the visuals for like Windows keygens and stuff for like cracked games. And they don't only do that, they also like try to push the limits of the like vintage consoles and stuff like that, like Amigas and Genesis and stuff. So like those people, either stumbling upon a community of those people, or like just if you go to game FAQs, the amount of effort that these people put into like their walkthroughs and just like the way they organize it and like make the ASCII art and everything, it's just like, why are they doing it? Like, what do they get? I don't know, but they put so much effort and love into it. Like, those are like utopias, like that's basically the aesthetic of the EP. Like, if you listen to it, it's like it's not its own sound. It's like the sound being spread out. Like, it's many individual different sounds put together, and like it's kind of sounds ugly, but at the same time it sounds beautiful as well. So that's kind of the aesthetic that permeates throughout the EP, the microsite, the album art, yeah.
And you chose to sort of have them, the tracks are called Plus Part 1, Minus Part 1. Why is that?
So the minus parts were like to signify, like cathartic actions or cathartic content that we consume on the internet. Like, it's like an expulsion of energy, or like we spend that energy, by doing like either aggressive or like dark, negative themed things. It can be like watching some horror movie or something, that fear. At the same time, it allows us to, like, after you get scared, you feel what, like, you feel at ease and you feel comfortable and everything. Or like when you're playing a violent video game or something, like at that moment you might feel negative, but then after that's done, like, you feel like at much more ease. And then plus is like giving the hope after the catharsis. Like when you go through something negative and you like scream or whatever and you get all that out, like at that time you're pretty much empty and neutral, and then we want positivity to fill that space, and that's what the plus tracks kind of represent. And the internet kind of gave me outlets for like both of these things, like positivity in terms of like visual art and like great stories and stuff like that, and great fiction. And same thing even with the negative stuff, whether it's like horror visuals or like video games or this kind of stuff. It's not like it has to be something specific or obscure or anything. Like, it can even be general things, but yeah, like both of these experiences put together, I felt like it felt complete after everything happened. So yeah.
Alright, play us another track of the EP.
Okay, so this is Minus Part 2.
That was minus part 2 of URL Utopias by the Sine painter. That, by the way, is the most accessible track of the EP. Yeah, it's the most.
Yeah, it's the most banging track. It was meant as the track that DJs could go to if they wanted like something banging in the club. That wasn't like the same old types. And yeah, it was made in a weird BPM. I think it's 115 BPM, but at the same time, I didn't realize I was making it 115 BPM. I just like dragged and dropped a bunch of samples and then started arranging it. And then I looked at the BPM like, this sounds nothing like 115. So yeah, it's like a lot of the EP has that vibe. But I didn't even realize like a lot of it's 120 BPM. Like yeah. So yeah, that's.
You've said, I think, in conversation or when we were speaking earlier, that you've used some sort of warfare-based samples for this track. Was it this one? Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the soundtrack for two cyborg samurais battling each other. Like that's kind of the imagery I get in my head whenever I listen to that. It's like with the kotos and the taikos at the same time, you have all this like jet propulsion sounds and like artillery smashing and like smashing against metal. Like you can hear the bullet shots against metal and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of like, oh, these two things have guns and swords and like smashing into each other, and what would that sound like, and what would the soundtrack for that be? That was kind of like, I thought that was a cool thing, like because a lot of content that I consume off the internet is like Japanese anime, cyberpunk based. I really like that aesthetic, and I really like those themes, and I wanted to translate that into a track, and that was like that.
We've seen some colorful descriptions of the tracks and the EP online. Best not said on Box Out FM, but let's talk about a few of the influences on the EP. It was not just like musical influences, but you also referred to like a lot of 3D art, web art, artists as well. Talk us through some of those.
So like, do you want only the web art, or do you want like both? Okay, so musically, I really liked people who were doing weird things with club music. Like a few artists on Pan Records, Mesh, and Helm, and then like I think it's Infinite Machine. They're another record label that's putting out like insane, like consistently putting out insane stuff. That Zero EP and then the W3C EP, like they just like kill it one after the other. And then after listening to that, I was like, man, what if I made something like that? That wasn't that, but that was kind of my own thing. And yeah, musically it's there. It's from that. It's from like the Fractal Fantasy crew, St. Hawk and Zora Jones, and Darko, Visionists, like those two guys as well. All the Lorenzo Seni, for like that's where all the euphoric, even you can even say Tiesto, because like that euphoric super saw sounds, from like direct trance, or like either when it was used in grime through like Darko's work, or like when it was twisted into like some like much darker stuff with Visionists' work. Yeah, all of that kind of like, what if I take all of that and just like smash it into like 4 tracks? That was the musical aesthetic for the whole thing. Yeah, and the visual stuff, like I really like this web artist called Kabibo, Cabbibo. Like the way he thinks about art and the way he thinks about interactivity and stuff, like he makes web art, and he also makes he mainly makes interactive experiences. So now he makes VR based stuff, and like he has this description of art being kind of like a prism. Like if you take one concept, it's kind of like looking at the sun. Like it's too bright to see. Like if you stare at it too long, everything becomes fuzzy and stuff. Like you can't see anything clearly. but like art is supposed to be like a prism where it like splits that really bright light into like things where you can appreciate it individually, you know, like that was like that made a lot of sense to me because that was kind of like what I was trying to like take that bright light in my head and then kind of just like split it into like the different constituent lights and like in terms of like finished tracks. So yeah, Kabibo definitely. um, Ezra Miller, the guy who works with Fractal Fantasy on some of their stuff. Altered Qualia, he's a mainstay in like 3JS community. He does like a lot of cool realism based uh, web interactive experiences and stuff. And yeah, like I could go on, but yeah.
All right, we'll go on after you play another track of the EP. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Just a reminder, the Sign Painter is actually going to play at Bandstand. Corridors opening from 10 onwards. Free gig. All you lazy people, get your asses up. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Fresh off the press, new EP introducing Sign Painter, New Delhi. Kenneth Lobo, take it.
So that was Plus Part 2, the last track of the EP. Yeah, ends on a euphoric, ecstatic note. The gig itself is not you playing the EP, right? It's completely different. You've developed visuals for it. Tell us about the gig itself. What to expect tonight at Bandstand?
So like the gig was, it's kind of meant to be like everything that influenced the making of the EP, all the music that's led up to it being created, the visuals from the artists who've inspired me are all. So like I've made like a long montage of like clips by artists who've inspired me that's going to be playing in the background while I DJ music that inspired the musical part of it. So yeah, that's the whole concept of the live show.
Well done. I mean, you put many months into this, and it shows. I mean, you can feel the soul in the music. Yeah.
110%. I was saying earlier when I was listening to the EP, I had remembered your set at Magnetic Fields, and it was different to hear that sound and experience it here and be like, wow, okay, this is your EP. I mean, I actually just heard it all today, I didn't have the chance. I don't have the chance to listen to a lot of music, but I'm glad I heard it. And yeah, everybody out there, you guys got to go check this kind of music out. Weird, darkish, electronica. Yeah, I mean, happy. Everybody represents it differently or consumes it differently, but yeah, I love it.
Yeah, thanks a lot for hosting us. Yeah, it was really great coming here, and then it's been a great few days playing shows and stuff. I'm really happy to put this out. This is my first EP, and to have something to say. Okay, this is the Sign Painter, and this is what he does. Yeah, it means something. So yeah.
And the last track you're playing us is.
Okay, I think I'll play a Blank Banshee track, because even he was like a huge influence, both like thematically and like musically. Let's see if I have it. Yeah, I do. So this is Infinite Login by Blank Banshee.
Make sure you join us at Bandstand later. RBMA presents the Sine Painter EP launch. Peace out.